What do I think of the coronavirus response by the Morrison government? And in a nutshell, I just think at this stage it's probably too early to say. I think that a lot of this will become clear in hindsight as to how well it was gauged and calibrated and how it was picked. I think it's taking a lot of wisdom at the moment for the government to pick that pathway in advance, because there's a great big lag factor with coronavirus. You don't know how many people have it until after the fact. You don't know how many people are going to die from it until after the fact, because people stay sick for quite a while. And if people end up in intensive care, they even stay sick for quite a while. The average time on a respirator for a coronavirus patient is like 20 days, whereas for a normal ICU patient, it's about 4 days. So, the lag on all that number and all that information makes it difficult. The government's predicting in advance. And all that we're left to do really as onlookers is make best guesses. I think that the way they've handled it is within the boundaries of what's reasonable. Is it the perfect answer? Probably not. Hindsight will show us whether it was. It probably isn't. Could they have done things better? Probably, yeah. But again, hindsight will reveal all of that. But is it reasonable? So far, I think it is. And there's a few reasons. Let me tell you why. The first one is we know that when this virus gets a foothold in a country and spreads exponentially, just checking my sound there, I thought I didn't turn it on. And it spreads exponentially. We know that it causes chaos and havoc. So China, harrowing stuff. Young people, old people, the whole business, just dreadful. Italy, whew. Anyone who's seen any images out of Italy, that is nasty, nasty stuff. And again, it's not just old people. I know it's mostly old people, but once this gets to a certain level of exponential growth, something happens, something changes, and it's serious. We're now seeing Spain. We probably saw Iran in the same, but it's hard to get visibility on Iran, so not so in our face. But Spain is now emerging as a real potential disaster zone, and also New York State. I mean, what's happening over there is pretty full on. They've got laws being passed to allow one respirator to be used for 2 patients. They have 9 hospitals in New York State looking to put on massive expansion wings to accommodate thousands of patients in each case. They have US Navy hospital ships docking off Manhattan. Samaritan's Purse, the Franklin Graham's outfit, they've been putting up a huge field hospital in Central Park to accommodate huge numbers of sick and all the rest of it. I mean, that's looking really serious. And you look at that and you go, whoa, the potential here is bad. And I think all the people out there saying, oh, this is seasonal flu and all that, a bit willfully blind. It clearly isn't. So I think that governments have to be very prudent. There's a few other things which I just want to raise, which is firstly, to curtail freedoms in a liberal democracy to deal with a public health crisis is not unusual. It's always been understood that will happen from time to time. You look at the human rights covenants that we signed up to, say in the 50s and the 40s and the 60s, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, for example, it says in there very clearly, public health emergencies mean that governments have to restrict freedoms. So people who are really worried about that, I understand the concern as a precedent for the future, but just by itself, it's not an unusual way to respond or a novel way to respond. Also, governments don't nuke their own economy for no reason in liberal democratic societies. They don't deliberately and rapidly deplete their economy, because that's their virtue signal to the world, their economic strength, and also that's their ticket to re-election, jobs and growth and all the rest of it. They might be misguided often, but they don't deliberately destroy it. And you see that this is antithetical to the liberal democratic psyche, because you see, for example, the UK in the early days, they didn't want to shut down. They really didn't, and they were going to stay open. But of course, time went on and oh dear, they had to change course and actually go ahead with the shutdown despite themselves. You look at Donald Trump. He's saying, oh, we've got to be open by Easter. America's not a people that likes to be locked away. We're an enterprising people. Yeah, that's right. But see, again, he's finding himself in a situation where the lockdown has to come, and it's despite his better instincts, despite himself, he's having to do this. So, there's huge payoff and reward if one of those leaders goes, this is a lot of nonsense, we're going to open for business, yet no one's doing it. So it tells me that the information they have is serious, and also they're taking the global situation seriously. The other thing is, I listened to a really interesting debate the other day between 2 leading epidemiologists in the world from the US who have dealt with pandemics before. And they made the very clear point that really we just lack so much data. The government knows so little about this thing. We didn't know it existed in December last year. And now they know so little about it, and they're trying to catch up. And until we have better data, we can't fine-tune the response any better than we have. And here's the thing, it may be that our government comes out in a few weeks and says we're going to change what we're doing. Certain sectors of the economy will be unlocked, certain people will be brought out of lockdown, all the rest of it, we're going to free this up. We shouldn't think the worst of them when that happens because they're waiting for information and data. And if that is the result of the information and the data, good. We don't criticize them, we're just aware they're trying to be wise and think ahead and act cautiously. So I think this is all this has all been within the bandwidth of reasonable, but I'm going to raise three areas of concern. First is economic. What is it? $320 billion the government is spending on this crisis right now, at a time when income is depleting because of the slack economy. Now this is huge, and this is just the beginning. My concern is this: you think of the global financial crisis, 2008. Before that, Australia had heaps of money in the bank. We'd been running surpluses for years. We didn't have any national debt. And then the GFC hits. What happens? Well, Kevin Rudd was in government at the time. He spent a whole lot of money on stimulus. I got a big fat check in the bank. I was a student at the time at uni. And also, what did he did the pink bats thing, he did the school halls thing, he did the nation building, Infrastructure Australia stuff, and so on. Huge amounts of money was spent and we went shoo into debt. And the coalition at the time who were in opposition kicked up a huge fuss about this. And they said, you know, you can't do this. You're plunging us into more debt than we need to go into, and we're never going to get out of it. And we're never going to come back to the position of strength that we need to be in to navigate crises like this. And it's interesting, what they said at the time, funnily because they're in government now, came true. We never returned to that strength. We never paid the debt off. We never got back to surplus. We never resolved these issues. And yet we're facing the next crisis. And so we go GFC, a little bit of a recovery, next crisis, you know, you can't see my finger, GFC, bit of a recovery, next crisis down. You see this slide that's going on because governments dish out the money in the hard times and everyone says, woo, government's saving us. And they continue to dish out the money in the good times. And they don't use those times like Joseph did as times to exercise wisdom and restraint to save up for the bad times. So that's something that worries me. Longevity worries me. How long can this go on for with the free people? Some of the stuff they're doing, I think, is undermining the prospect of longevity. I think Daniel Andrews came out just this morning and he said that couples that don't live together cannot visit each other. Now, come on. There's stuff like that that makes me go, people, you know, it's got to pass the pub test on reasonableness in order to last a long time. All right, if this is just a few weeks, but my goodness, it's not going to, you know, the longevity thing, I query. Precedent, I worry about that. What does this mean, for example, for dealing with the climate change emergency? You know, Greta Thunberg style. Climate alarmists, it fits with their political instincts, command and control by government. You know, the people need to be saved for their own good because they are too stupid to see the crisis and they're going to send themselves to a climate catastrophe. So the experts need to come in and rule the roost. It fits perfectly with what they would like to see. As a precedent, now that it's been done in our generation, I worry about what's next. So with those caveats, I think there's a reasonableness to what's happened, but those are the three watching briefs. And next week, I'll do a piece on the economic impact because it'll be a lot clearer. And I think that there'll be concerns emerging on that front. But that is what I think of the government's coronavirus response. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, then make sure to hit the like button. If you want to never miss another video again, make sure to subscribe, or you can right now watch more videos right here. Cheers.